Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Squatchkins of all ages, the likes or not. I am Pump Squatch. Hello, and okay. A few months ago, I did a bit of a deck profile on the V version of the Shiranui Oboro post-ban list deck profile, and it's a very interesting and fun deck. Looking back on it, I think that might actually be contributing more towards the final builds that I'll personally be going with when it comes to this deck. Now, that was a few months back, and since then, I've been toying around with the Zanki version of this build. I have a few little ideas and thoughts that are actually kind of in this deck box. I will be going over those as I proceed through the deck profile, but in the meantime, without further ado, let us continue and do the second version of this deck profile for Dominate, with Zanki being the main grade 3. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the cards, my thoughts and opinions as we go throughout, because this deck, I feel, is actually not the strongest version of it, and I am very surprised. But it definitely will also contribute to it. We'll get into that. We'll get into that as we go. But first, we're going to have the 4 copies of Shiranui Zanki. This is going to be the main grade 3 that you want to write into every single time. If you somehow miss this, you are in a bit of trouble, and you kind of have to hope for the best at that point. But what he does is on ride or on stride atop of him, you may choose one unit to give 2,000 power. If it's an opponent's rear guard, you dominate it and have it attack another unit. It does not have to be the Vanguard, but it does just attack another unit. That option is kind of cool that you get to choose your own units if you want to gain the 2,000 power, but usually you want to dominate the opponents. Now, has a second skill of, on Vanguard, at start of ride phase, you may Soul Blast one card to draw one, and everybody calls one card from hand to Guardian Circle. This is to help also get you your pieces, as well as just make the opponent thin their hand a little bit more, which Nubatama is all about control, being aggressive, well, that aggressive kind of control, and making your opponent neg from the hand a lot. So that's going to be the main grade 3 you want to ride, and even when it wasn't the main grade 3, it was still insanely powerful, so people still ran it at about 2 or so. Next up, we have 2 copies of Shiranui V, just Stealth Dragon Shiranui V version, and what he does is pretty simple, I guess. Once per turn on Vanguard, you may discard 1 to superior ride 1 Shiranui Oboro from your deck on top of him. You can't use this in this deck, unfortunately. You can't use that skill in this deck because it looks specifically for Shiranui Oboro, not a card with Shiranui Oboro in its card name. So you can't use that skill. But you use it for the other skill, which is far more important in this deck. When it attacks, if you have a Shiranui Vanguard, you may have it gain plus 10,000 power, and at the end of that battle, you may pay the cost of put him to soul. If you do, you draw 1 card, your opponent chooses 1 rear guard, returns it to the hand, and if they did, they then discard 1 card. It's a really aggressive card, and overall just really good. Now, we have another card that I honestly am thinking of cutting down a little bit. We have Shura Stealth Dragon Fuzen Congo. How could I forget that name? Anyways, Fuzen Congo, I actually have playing at 2. If you've seen the last deck profile I uploaded, then you're aware that what his ability is, and you're aware that I believe that he could actually be the next finisher in this deck if we have one. His ability is, when he attacks, if you are at 5 damage, you may Soul Blast 1 grade 3 and bind as many cards in your drop zone as you want. If you do, he gains 5,000 power for every card in your bind zone, and your opponent cannot call Sentinels during his attack. This card is a very high risk, sort of high reward kind of card, in that you need to reach very specific conditions in order to make it work. If you do, it can pay off dividends. However, it can also be very bricky, because a lot of times what you want to do, you want to attack with your Vanguard, put any and all crits or triggers that you get on him. However, if you get a heal trigger and heal down from 5 to 4 damage, you can't use his ability in the first place to begin with. So it is a little bit luck-sacky, it is a little bit bricky, and I found that I don't really need to run 2 copies. I considered cutting down a copy of him to run 3 of Shiranui V, honestly, and I think that's what I'll end up doing. But overall, for this build, he's done okay, he's done fine, but another reason I think I'll cut him down to 1 copy is the fact that we run Forbid Doll Surrogate. It's just a regardless piece of, when you play it, search your deck or drop zone for any, like up to 2 grade 3 or 4 units, and you may call all the grade 3 units you searched, and you may add all the grade 4 units you searched to the hand. So call all grade 3s to the field that you search, add the grade 4s to the hand. This is incredibly good in this deck. I did before like to play Bracing Angel Ladder for the fact of it would, 1, allow you to draw a card, and 2, it would also allow you to just have field protection that was able to keep your combos alive and protected. But I found that Forbid Dull Circuit is going to be a little bit better because while the draw is nice, you don't know where you're going to draw, and with the Forbid Dull Surrogate, you know exactly the cards that you're going to go for. No matter what, you're still going to get that +2 even if it's straight to the field. It's still just really good. So as a result, and because Narukami isn't a huge contender in the meta right now, Forbid Dull Surrogate is the one that I'm going with. After that, I chose to run only 2 Furai, and this is going to be a bit of a controversial choice, I know, but what Furai does is when he attacks, he gains 5,000 power for every dominated unit that you dominated that attacked. So every unit you dominated that attacked that turn. And in this deck, you could get upwards of maybe 4 dominated attacks, so that's plus 20k when this card attacks. But it has a second skill. When your Vanguard attacks, you may Soul Blast 1 to restand it. That's it, just a simple restand, but it's got that 20k addition, so it's still really good. Pair that with the crest that you have in this deck, and that can be even more. This card can be very, very deadly. I just don't run any more of it because of the sheer fact of space. And the grade 2 cards in this deck, I feel as though they are probably some of the most powerful toolkit that you could play around with in the deck and could be the most fun. You could bump this up to 3 if you somehow want to take other cards and reduce it, but we'll get to those in a bit. Next up, we have 4 copies of Sengeki. This is a staple for pretty much every Nubatama deck that I have seen thus far. It has the skill of you may discard it at the start of your ride phase. You may discard him to search the top 5 cards of your deck for up to 1 grade 2 or less unit in general, and add it to your hand. This is going to help make sure that you stay a little bit more consistent with getting your grade 2 and grade 1 ride targets, as well as any other key pieces that you may just need. Not only that, it's also able to search out Hanali, kind of floodgating them, just really good. It also has the second skill of when it attacks while boosted, you may Soul Blast 1 card, and if your opponent has 4 or more cards in their hand, they take 1 and discard it. It's a very aggressive card. Very good for getting your key pieces, but also very good for just being aggressive in the early game, and that is something that people seem to really underestimate with Nubatama. The early game is no joke. Next up, I actually do run 3 copies of, no, it's not Fusen Kongo, that was the other one. It's Yamishibuki, there we go. Yamishibuki is a card that not everyone runs, but I personally like it because I like the versatility the grade 2 lineup gives me. And this one helps for the early game pressure as well as defense. What this does is when it attacks, you may counterblast 1 and return 1 rear guard you control, other than him, to your hand. If you do, you will gain 2 evil decoy tokens. He also gains 5,000 power for each evil decoy token you have. Is it? No, I think it's just grade 0. Yeah, for each grade 0 rear guard that you have. So if you have 2 with the skill that he just did, then that's a plus 10k, making him a 19k beater. Plus those evil decoy tokens can intercept from the back row, so that's just really good defense. Now, this is one of the cards that if you want to cut down for more of the Furai, you definitely could. That's a choice that a lot of people make, but I really like the early game aggression as well as being able to call something out, attack with it, attack with Yamishibuki, and bounce that thing back to your hand for just more defense is really, really good in my opinion. I like it. I like that early game aggression, you know? We also have 3 copies of the grade 2 Shoujo Doji, which skill. When you ride this on Vanguard Circle, you may search the top 5 cards of your deck for up to 2 stealth units, normal stealth units. You put one of them to your soul and call the other one out to rear guard. Getting this to call Yamishibuki is so good and so satisfying because all that means is that you just need to call 1 more unit out to be able to have that good grade 2 rush. Attack with that rear guard, attack with Yamishibuki, bounce that rear guard back to hand. This is a 19k, and then your Vanguard attacks for an extra drive check. One thing to note, do not get that order wrong. because if you get a heal trigger in your drive check and you heal down to where you have no counterblast, Yami Shibuki is just a 9k beater at that point. So do not make that mistake. I have done it far too many times and it has kicked me in the throat as a result. He also has another skill which doesn't come up very often, but sometimes it does, especially if you use Fusen Kongo, in that Soul Blast 1 when he is in your bind zone. If you do, you may superior call him to your field. It's good, not bad. Definitely something to counter some Narukami plays, I guess, but it's not that big of a deal. You don't use it that often, if ever. Next up, we have, of course, one of Elementaria Sanctitude. It's basically a free PG if your opponent has triple drive. Other than that, you have to discard one like a normal Sentinel, but it's kind of a staple in premium format. We have two of Hanali. So what Hanali does is that a rearguard cannot attack the Vanguard if it's the 5th or more battle of that turn, unless Counterblast 1 is played. And what you could also do is, when this unit is on your rearguard circle, you can remove it from the game. Not bind, not retire, nothing. You remove it from the game, and your opponent now has that limitation, but you do not. So they have to pay the cost if they make a 5th or more attack with their rear guards. It's really good for kind of floodgating your opponent, keeping them from being as aggressive on you as they possibly want. But it's also got an errata where it has 10k shield. So it's a really good card, really good floodgate. It was super important when you were playing against, Pale Moon in the last format, but yeah, it's still good. I still love that card, it's really good. Next up, we have 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Unin. One of the cards that I really liked to write into when I didn't have the crest. What he does is, when you write upon him, you may reveal 1 grade 3 card from your hand. If you do, you may add up to 1 other grade 3 unit from your deck to your hand of a different name. If you do, you put any card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. This allows you to put anything back, such as triggers or just a card you don't need for that moment in the game. And it allows you to add another grade 3 for later in the game. Even if you, for let's say, don't have Zanki in your hand, you could search for a Zanki. As long as you have a grade 3 normal unit, you could search. One important thing to note is if you ride over him with Shoujo Doji, you get to use Unin's skill first to put anything back in your deck. Let's say you have an over trigger in hand, you could put that over trigger back to the bottom of your deck and use Shoujo Doji's skill to call from the top 5 or whatever, search the top 5, and then your deck is shuffled after that. So basically you can put an over trigger back into your deck and it won't be at the bottom. His second skill is when he boosts, you may put the boosted unit into the soul to return 2 rear guards to the hand. Your rear guards, that is. 2 of your rear guards to the hand. Really good. I like it. Good for filling up soul and keeping your field empty in case any shenanigans should happen. After that, we have 3 copies of the V version of Stealth Beast Kata Regetsune, the Fox. It's the grade 3 searcher for the top 3. So there are a couple of versions. I've actually considered running the standard version just to get that free search exactly for a Stealth Dragon or whatever, or Stealth Dragon Obro. However, I decided to go with this one because of a few reasons. One, there are times where you don't just want to search out for a specific Obro, you also want to be able to add either Forbidal Surrogate to your hand, or Fusen Kongo, or any other card that is grade 3 in your deck. Even though it's just top 5, that's okay. He also has 10k shield, which this deck desperately needs to try to stay alive when it is committing its turns, and it's what many people would say, war crimes. He also has the skill of he gains 5,000 power if you have a grade 0 unit, I believe, or any token unit. If you have any token unit, he gains 5,000 power. But as far as I'm aware, there are only 2 kinds of tokens in Nubatama, and we're only running 1 of them in this deck. Next up, we have 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Seizui. Now, I'm still working on getting my 4th copy. It's the Crest Getter. When you ride it upon a Stealth Dragon Modai, you gain the crest and you draw 1. Simple. That crest is busted though. Now, it's not the end of the world if you do not ride this. If you misride and let's say you ride into Karagetsune or even Unin for that matter, it's not the end of the world, because one of the things that's really interesting about Nubatama, when you dominate a unit, you're able to use that unit's abilities as if they were your own. But the crest keeps you from being able to use those abilities. Because basically what happens, when your opponent has a unit that is called by your ability, or is dominated by your ability, they lose basically all of their abilities, and that's it. However, let's say you don't have the crest. When you dominate a unit, you get to use its abilities, and it becomes very interesting and very fun. That's when you're really able to kind of explore the possibilities of dominate, because dominate has always been a very, believe it or not, high skill stealing mechanic somehow, because you're able to use and abuse your opponent's cards as if they were your own pieces. And that's when it becomes really fun. As long as you're able to meet the requirements to do those abilities, you can do those abilities. While that is a lot more fun in my opinion, the crest is also just a lot better at scaling and probably more dangerous as well in most cases. So we run four copies of Stealth Dragon Seizui, and of course the 1 copy of Stealth Dragon Bodai. If you're in the premium format, you know what it does. On ride, you draw a card, and you also gain a quick shield ticket if you win second. So that's kind of what we use. I use the Dragon Empire Overtrigger, where when it is checked when you attack, you restand your Vanguard. It's kind of it. Choose one of your Vanguards and restand it. That's... yeah, it's pretty busted. We do 4 perfect draws, draw trigger PGs, or I'm sorry, 3 PGs, draw trigger PGs, because we have that Elementaria Sanctitude in deck. We have 4 of the Strike Crit. Now, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically when you pay the cost for Stride, this gains 3 grades, so it's grade 3 when you discard for Stride. We also have 4 of Stealth Dragon Noroi. This card was errated to when it is damage checked, you may draw 1 card. So it's basically a free draw, very helpful for defense, but also has a second ability of when it is on your rearguard circle. If a Vanguard with Shiranui in its card name attacks, you may put it to soul. If you do, that unit gains plus 5,000 power and you draw 1 card. Very powerful for offense and defense, and if you just need an extra card in soul, that's mainly the reason you do that in the first place. Next up, we have the 4 heal triggers. I use 3 of the Mumio Kongo and 1 of Kesero Basara. So what Mumio Kongo, if I didn't butcher that, does, when you place this on Guardian Circle, if you have not ridden a grade 3 that turn or that game yet, you choose one of your units to either gain, you choose your Vanguard, I believe, to gain 10,000 power until end of turn. Yeah, choose one of your Vanguards and gains 10,000 power until end of turn, or you choose one of your opponent's units to gain -2 critical, which is very, very powerful for just being able to survive when you're going second. Well, I guess you don't have to go second, but it's still really good. You also have Basara, which I think it's fine at 1. I think it's fine at 1, but if you want to bump it up to 2, you can play that risky game. What it does is when you use this to pay the cost for Stride, or not Stride, for Generation Guard, you may bind it and another heal trigger from your drop zone to either countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. So it's really not that bad actually in this deck, and I think it's fine at 1, but if you're okay at managing your resources, you should be alright. But it does kind of come with that caveat of it's just to help you manage your resources, because in Nubatama, like 80% of cards either cost Counterblast or Soul Blast. So if you're not careful with your resources, you can gas out too fast, and this is, oh wait, not that. And this is to kind of help alleviate that, mainly. So there you go. That's all for the main deck. For the G Zone, this is where some interesting choices were made. So of course you're going to have the tokens, by the way. You need to have at least 4 to 5 copies, just in case. But for the G Zone, I run 1 of Shiranui Murguro, and this is basically just a field wipe. You dominate your opponent's Vanguard for the cost of Soul Blast 2 and you discard 1, and you dominate your opponent's Vanguard, have it attack all their rear guards, and you do drive checks for those attacks as well. So it's a good field wipe, good board wipe. It helps you to draw as well, but it is a bit of a steep cost of Soul Blast 2. So again, a lot of the cards in this deck do have that cost. For the longest time, I was a fan of Jakumetsu. I believe that he is still an incredibly good card, and I've even considered bumping him up to 2 cards, but my only reason for not doing that is the fact of he is bricky. If you do not get enough of the evil decoy tokens out, or you don't get your Yamashibuki to get those out, he's essentially a dead card. What he does is when he attacks, you may retire 2 grade 0 units to return all your rear guards to your hand. If you do, and then you draw 2 cards, and you may call up to 2 cards from your hand to your field. If you do, he gains plus 10,000 power and a critical. Now that is very, very powerful and is really good for both offering good offense and draw power, because this is before his triple drive. The cost is the only problem I have with it, because this implies that you either need to call down 2 grade 0 triggers, or you need to draw or call into Yamishibuki. And that may not seem bad, however, if you don't draw your combo pieces in order to get his skill off, or something happens to those evil decoy tokens, you are SOL, and he's essentially just a stride unit that does triple drive, and that's it. Just a big beat stick. That's kind of where I had the biggest trouble. I didn't know what would be a good first stride in the cases where you can't use Yamishibuki, or you just don't flat out want to. I've been playing Nubatama for a very long time. Since the deck came out, I picked it up immediately and was playing it. I've been playing this for years. I even picked up the original Nubatama cards back in set 1. Back in the very beginning. Yeah, I've been playing for a long time. And through all of G format, no matter what, I didn't see any G units in the G format that actually were a good first stride in the modern day. So I decided, what if I looked outside of G format? After a lot of thought, I actually found a good first stride unit, Enma's Stealth Dragon Magen Tenbu, but not the G format version, the standard D format version. If you don't know what he does, the original Magen Tenbu basically selects one of your opponent's rear guards, stands it, give it plus 3,000 power, and has it attack your opponent's vanguard. Now how is this one different? Well, it's very subtle, but you dominate one of your opponent's rear guards and have it attack their other unit. Now this doesn't give power, it doesn't do anything crazy like what our other strides do sometimes, it just is a dominate, stand, and attack. So why would I want to use this if it's a weaker version of the original? And that's for a simple reason, the cost. You see, the original Magen Tenbu is Counterblast 1 and flip a copy of him face up in the G zone, whereas this one is Counterblast 1 and flip any G unit face up in your G zone. Does not have to be a copy, doesn't have to be anything specific, just a G unit. And that is what makes the biggest difference. With this, you'll be at Generation Break 3 and you target a specific card that you want to flip face up. That card being, ta-da! Yeah, actually that is a huge reason why I prefer this over the original. And I think this is an incredible first stride unit, not just because of the art, but just because of the cost. Because when this card is flipped face up, I don't have a copy of it, unfortunately, I am so sorry. When this card is face up in your G zone, you have the ability of giving all units that you control that attack plus 5,000 power if they don't have all abilities. And with the crest steals away abilities of those cards. So essentially, if you are able to get the crest off, this will give that dominated unit plus 5,000 power, and this G unit will give it an additional 5,000 power, making it a 10,000 power boost, which is not only way more than what you would have gotten from the original, but also you are able to be at Generation Break 3 and will actually put you in a perfect position for what was the biggest reason people use Nubatama for, Shiranui Rine. This a lot of times is your finisher G unit. What it does is Counterblast 1 and flip a copy of him face up in the G zone. Your opponent chooses 2 cards from their hand and calls them to rear guard circle. You dominate them, give them 5,000 power, and they attack the vanguard. But it gets crazier. He has a Generation Break 3 where all dominated units you control gain plus 10,000 power and 1 critical. Because let's say you stride over Zanki. Oh, well, there you go. Zanki's skill activates, you dominate an opponent's rear guard and it attacks. But wait, you're at Generation Break 3. That dominated unit gains 5,000 power from this, 5,000 power from that thing, and 10,000 power from this, making it a 20k boost to that unit plus a critical. Why are we clinically insane? People hate this card. People hate this card and I understand why. When it comes to Nubatama, this is perhaps the #1 card that people try to figure out how to counter, because there are ways to counter it, especially if going second. But it is still an insanely powerful card and very, very dangerous to deal with. Honestly, a staple, if you ask me. I also happen to run as a tech Enma Stealth Dragon Mugen Lord Dagoku? Goku! This is also another option for a potential first stride. Not a bad option even at that, but it is pretty niche. Mainly if you're going second, that is. What it is Counterblast 1, your opponent chooses 2 units in their G-zone that have power so no G-guards, oh wait, that's not G-guard, no G-guards, no. They call them to rear guard and they attack the Vanguard. You may also use the abilities of the G units if you don't get crest, and I love using this card, especially against decks that use the History Collection Stride. Perhaps the biggest one that I like to use it against is Narukami, because with Narukami they have a very interesting G guard, where basically what it does, when you place that G unit on Guardian Circle, if your opponent has more rear guards than you, they bind 1 card, and if they have 2 or more, they then also retire another card, making it so it's essentially a board wipe. And if they do 2 of them, that's a pretty big missing piece right there. However, they need to be at Generation Break 1 at least. And if you take away the only 2 face-up cards in their G-zone, they're at Generation Break 0, because Generation Break counts the number of cards on your Vanguard and face-up in your G-zone. It's crazy, but it is such a big FU to History Collection Strides that it is so fun to do. It is, because it just puts them in a really bad spot for your domination turns. So yeah, really good for those History Collection kind of moves, as well as just a bunch of History Collection cards are really strong when they hit. So yeah, I have 1 copy of Drachma in the G-zone, though I have never found myself actually using this because the risk is too high for the payoff. What it does is Counterblast 2, I believe. When this, I don't even remember what it does for you. Counterblast 2, when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, retire all your opponent's units, bind them face up. Your opponent chooses 3 cards from his or her hand, discards 2 of them, and writes 1 of the cards on their Vanguard Circle, standing face up. This is really powerful, especially for a 25k base. But nobody uses it anymore for the sheer fact of when at the end of your turn, you remove your G-zone, this card included. So you will be at Generation Break 0. It also has a loss condition that can happen, but you never really run this. You also basically have to be at Generation Break 3, which by that point you either are about to lose or win anyways, so it doesn't make that huge difference. When it returns to the G-zone, remove your G-zone. Yeah, you remove your G-zone. Not bind, just removed, so it's gone. Very high risk, kind of high reward, but just not worth it. What I do prefer to run is the Generation Break 8, where Generation Break 8, when your opponent would place a card from hand to Guardian Circle, cost Counterblast 1 or Soul Blast 1, either or, it doesn't have to be both, it's one or the other, and they discard 2 cards, making it essentially a 3-card guard. Except in some special cases where it's superior calls, where it's just like a special intercept or calls from drop zone or even top 5 cards at deck, whatever. This is essentially gonna be the big finisher if they aren't already dead at that point. Oh yeah, you also have the Guardian Shield Ticket Getter. That's a staple in the premium format. I'll put the skill of it on screen right here because I don't have all the skills memorized. I just know you use it mainly for the Guardian Shield ticket. Other than that, we do have 1 copy of Jinx Stealth Fiend Zashiki Hime. Generation Break 1. When it's placed on Guardian Circle, you may flip up a G guard in your G zone face up. If you do, your opponent may discard 1 card from their hand. If they don't, this gains 20,000 shield. A lot of the times people just use this to get more face up cards in your G zone for the for the crest, which I see the strategy because it's not super great, but it does give your opponent a decision that they will have to neg if they want to be able to push for that game. You also have 2 copies of Mori Lord. Yep. This is a very good card. When placed on Guardian Circle, Counterblast 1 gains 5,000 power for every card in your opponent's hand, and if they have 4 or less, you draw 1 card. Very good, very powerful. I like it. And 1 copy finally of Rikudo Stealth Dragon, Gehorakan. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When it's placed on Guardian, you may choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rear guards and put it into your Guardian Circle, making this anywhere from a 20k to a 25k while taking one of your opponent's units. The rest are just kind of like the gift markers and shield tickets, but that's the deck profile. I think that this deck is really strong, but this version I feel is as though a little bit more glass cannon because there's no way for you to effectively get those sentinels or those protect markers in hand, while as with the other ones, you can get either 1 or 2 in hand. But you do have to just draw into some of your key pieces and cards. And while that's really good, I do have some thoughts and opinions that may become a lot more realized in the final builds. But this is far from the final builds. We still have one more to go over before that final build, so I'm looking forward to bringing you that. It shouldn't be too much longer, I don't think, because that one is kind of what it was before the crest came out. So if you're looking forward to that, by all means, let me know in the comment section down below. This version is more glass cannon, very, very aggressive deck, but also can be very fragile. But with that being said, thank you very much for watching, guys. Really do appreciate it. If you have any opinions, thoughts on this deck profile, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any questions, by all means, hey, let's have fun with it. But that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Really do appreciate it. See you all in the next video or stream or whatever I do. And as always, I am Pumpsquatch. Goodbye.